The expedition ship left the Academy station 2 weeks after the signal was detected. It was a joint mission, carrying humans and aliens who volunteered to investigate the mysterious transmission from the Forbidden Zone. The ship was called the Pathfinder, a research vessel equipped with the best scanning technology in the galaxy. Jake stood on the bridge alongside Lisa, Captain Cross, and Dr. Knight. Ben Walker, the archaeologist, studied ancient star maps while Mara Collins ran flight checks from the pilot's seat. Commander Barnes had stayed behind to coordinate with the Academy, but he had given Jake a private message before departure. "Find out what we really are." "We're entering the Forbidden Zone now," Mara announced. Her enhanced reflexes made her the best pilot on the ship. "All systems normal. No hostile contacts." The region of space ahead looked empty on visual displays, but the sensors told a different story. Quantum signatures filled the area, remnants of ancient technology still functioning after millions of years. "There," Ben said, pointing at his screen. 3 planetary systems all clustered together. According to the old records, these systems were marked as the Old One's core territory. No species has been here since they disappeared. Dr. Knight studied the readings with her 4 arms working across multiple consoles. "I'm detecting stasis fields, massive ones surrounding entire planets. They're keeping the worlds in a state of temporal suspension." "Someone preserved these places," Lisa said, understanding dawning in her eyes. "Someone wanted them to remain exactly as they were." The ship approached the first planet carefully. It was a world of red rock and deep canyons, with an atmosphere thick with nitrogen and carbon dioxide. But when the ship entered orbit, something unexpected happened. Jake felt it first. A pulling sensation in his chest, like something calling to him. Around the ship, the other enhanced humans reported the same feeling. "The planet knows we're here," Jake said. "I can feel it recognizing us." As if responding to his words, the stasis field around the planet flickered and began to fade. For the first time in millions of years, the world below came back to life. "The field is collapsing," Dr. Knight said, alarm in her voice. "Whatever technology was maintaining it has decided to shut down." "Or decided to let us in," Captain Cross said grimly. He turned to his security team. "Everyone prepare for landing. We're going down there." The landing party consisted of Jake, Lisa, Cross, Dr. Knight, Ben, Mara, and 5 other crew members. They touched down in a valley surrounded by towering cliffs. Ancient structures dotted the landscape, built from some dark metal that had survived millions of years without rust or decay. The moment Jake stepped off the ship, the pulling sensation grew stronger. His feet moved almost on their own, carrying him toward the nearest building. "Wait," Cross called. "We should stick together." But Jake couldn't stop. Something inside him knew where to go. The others hurried to follow as he walked through the entrance of a massive pyramid-shaped structure. Inside, holographic displays activated as they entered. The technology was far beyond anything the current galaxy could produce, yet it worked perfectly after eons of dormancy. Images filled the air around them, showing creatures that made Jake's blood run cold. They were beasts, massive, powerful, covered in scales, fur, or chitin depending on the image. Some had 6 legs, others had wings. Some looked reptilian, others mammalian. But they all shared the same eyes. Intelligent, predatory, aware. "The old ones," Dr. Knight whispered. "We're seeing them as they actually were." Ben studied the holograms with fascination. "These aren't different species. Look at the bone structure, the muscle placement. They're all variants of the same base species, like they could change form." "Adaptive evolution," Lisa said, her scientist mind working through the implications. They could evolve within their own lifetimes, become whatever predator their environment needed. More holograms appeared, showing planets across the galaxy. On each world, the old ones had taken a different form. On ice worlds, they were massive beasts with thick fur and claws for digging through frozen rock. On water worlds, they became sleek hunters with fins and gills. On worlds with thick forests, they developed the ability to climb and leap through trees. "They weren't conquerors," Jake said, the knowledge flowing into him from somewhere deep inside. "They were colonizers. They adapted to each world they found and made it their home." The hologram shifted to show Earth. Young, primitive Earth from millions of years ago. The old ones were there, but they looked different. Smaller, less specialized. More like the baseline form the species had started from. "Earth is the origin world," Dr. Knight said with absolute certainty. This is where they first evolved. But the hologram continued. It showed the old ones spreading across the galaxy world by world, system by system. For millions of years, they were the dominant life form, not through conquest or war, but through perfect adaptation. They were simply better at surviving than anyone else. Then the images changed. Space itself seemed to tear open. Dark shapes emerged, vast and terrible. The holograms couldn't quite capture what they were, as if the recording technology wasn't sufficient to properly display them. "What are those?" Mara asked. "The reason the old ones disappeared," Ben said quietly. The hologram showed a war. The old ones fought against the dark shapes with everything they had. Worlds burned, stars went dark. The galaxy itself seemed to scream, but the enemy kept coming, consuming everything biological it touched. Finally, the old ones made a choice. The hologram showed them gathering on Earth, their origin world. They used technology beyond comprehension to do something impossible. They fragmented their own genetics, broke themselves apart at the molecular level, and scattered the pieces across millions of years. They turned themselves into a genetic time bomb, Lisa breathed. They hid inside their own evolutionary past. The hologram showed Earth continuing through time. Other species evolved and went extinct. Ice ages came and went. Eventually, a new species appeared. Humans, carrying within them the scattered, dormant genetics of the old ones. "We're not descendants," Jake said, finally understanding. "We're them. We're the old ones, reborn in a form simple enough to survive but carrying all their potential locked away inside us." "But why?" Cross asked. "Why do this?" The hologram answered. It showed the dark shapes retreating into the void between galaxies, waiting, watching. And a timer appeared, counting down through millions of years. They knew the enemy would come back, Dr. Knight said. So they hid themselves in humanity, waiting for the right moment to awaken. "The DNA scan," Lisa said. "It was the trigger. The old ones designed their genetic locks to open when their descendants reached a certain level of technology, advanced enough to fight back." Jake looked at his hands. He wasn't just a human anymore. He was the echo of a species that had once ruled the galaxy, a species that had chosen to hide rather than face extinction, a species that had planned across millions of years for their enemy's return. The expedition explored 2 more planets in the cluster. Each one told part of the same story. Preserved breeding grounds where different strains of old ones had developed. Training facilities where young ones learned to control their adaptive abilities. Command centers where the final decisions had been made. On the 3rd planet, they found something that changed everything. A massive structure at the planet's core still functioning after all this time. It was a warning beacon, programmed to activate when humanity awakened. Ben managed to access its database. The message was clear and terrifying. The enemy the old ones had fought was called the Harvesters. They came from outside the galaxy, from the vast darkness between galaxies where nothing should live. They consumed biological life, feeding on it, growing stronger, and they would return when they detected advanced civilization reaching a certain threshold. "We triggered it," Cross said. "Humanity spread into space, our technology, our presence at the Academy. We rang the dinner bell." "How long do we have?" Mara asked. The database showed a calculation based on faster-than-light detection. 6 months, Ben said. "Maybe less. The Harvesters are already on their way." The expedition returned to the Academy with their findings. The recorded evidence of the old ones, the truth about humanity's origin, and the warning about the Harvesters. It was everything the galaxy needed to know and everything they feared. Jake stood in the ship's observation deck as they traveled back, staring at the stars. Lisa joined him, quiet for a long moment. "We're not monsters," she finally said. "The old ones weren't monsters. They were just survivors like any other species." "But we have their power inside us," Jake replied. "The power to become apex predators. The power to evolve and adapt and hunt. That's what scares them." "Then we'll have to prove we can control it," Lisa said. "We'll have to show the galaxy that we're not the enemy. The real enemy is coming, and they're going to need us." Jake nodded, feeling the weight of his heritage pressing down on him. Somewhere in his DNA was the knowledge and power of the old ones. The question was whether humanity could master it in time, or whether they would become the very monsters the galaxy feared. The Harvesters were coming, and ready or not, humanity would have to be the defenders the old ones had designed them to be. The Galactic Council chamber was the largest room Jake had ever seen. It could hold representatives from every member species, thousands of beings from across the galaxy, all gathered in a space that seemed to bend reality itself. Holographic projectors allowed distant delegates to appear as if they were physically present. The air hummed with translation devices working in hundreds of languages simultaneously. Ambassador Kira Stone stood at the center of the chamber, representing humanity. She wore formal diplomatic attire, her face calm despite the hostile stares directed at her from every direction. Behind her, the rest of Earth's delegation sat in assigned seats. Jake was there, along with Lisa, Captain Cross, and several other enhanced humans who had volunteered to be examined by the Council. High Chancellor Vex called the session to order. His insectoid form loomed over the assembly from his elevated platform. We are here to determine the fate of the human species. The evidence has been presented. We all know what they are. The question before us is simple. Do we allow the descendants of the old ones to remain in galactic society, or do we isolate them to their homeworld for everyone's safety? A reptilian delegate stood immediately. The choice is obvious. The old ones terrorized the galaxy for millions of years. My species has cultural memories of those times, passed down through generations. Our ancestors lived in constant fear. Now those monsters have returned wearing human faces. We must act before it's too late. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Ambassador Stone stepped forward. The old ones were not monsters. The evidence from the preserved world shows they were survivors who adapted to their environments. Yes, they were apex predators. But so are many species in this chamber. Being at the top of the food chain doesn't make someone evil. But they were designed for it, another delegate argued, this one from a species that resembled floating jellyfish. Humans carry the genetic potential to become ultimate predators. We've seen the changes already beginning. Enhanced strength, speed, senses. What happens when those changes complete? What happens when humans become what they were always meant to be? Dr. Knight stood up in the section reserved for scientific advisors. I understand the fear. My own species suffered under Old One predation millions of years ago, but I've studied the humans extensively over these past months. Yes, their abilities are awakening. Yes, they are becoming something more than they were, but they retain their humanity, their compassion, their choice. Choice means nothing when instinct takes over, a delegate countered. Predators hunt. It's their nature. We cannot gamble the safety of the entire galaxy on the hope that humans will choose differently. Lisa requested permission to speak. As a scientist and one of the enhanced humans, she had a unique perspective. I want to address the idea that we're losing our humanity. I'm one of the enhanced. My senses are sharper now. I'm stronger and faster, but I'm still me. I still care about the same things. I still value life. The genetic changes aren't overriding who we are. They're adding to it. For now, a skeptical voice called out. What about when the change is complete? What about when the full power of the old ones awakens? Captain Cross stood. His military bearing commanded attention. I've led soldiers for 20 years. I know what it means to have power and choose not to use it. Every species here has the capacity for violence. What matters is discipline and purpose. Earth is prepared to work with this council to ensure human abilities are used responsibly. And if we don't trust Earth's assurances, High Chancellor Vex asked, then you're making a decision based on fear, not facts. Ambassador Stone replied firmly. Humanity didn't ask for this heritage. We didn't choose to be the reborn old ones. But we're here now and we're willing to prove ourselves. Give us that chance. The debate raged for hours. Some delegates called for humanity to be quarantined immediately. Others suggested forced genetic suppression, using medical technology to lock away the awakening abilities. A few radical voices even proposed eliminating the human species entirely, though those suggestions were quickly shouted down. Through it all, Jake sat and listened. He could feel the enhanced abilities humming in his body, ready to be used. He could hear every conversation in the chamber, could smell the fear and anger in the air. Part of him understood why they were afraid. He was becoming something powerful, something that could be dangerous. But another part of him knew with absolute certainty that he would never use that power to harm innocents. During a recess, Senator Linda Hayes from Earth's government approached the delegation. She was a senior political leader who had arrived specifically for this trial. The vote isn't going our way, she said quietly. Too many species remember the old stories. They're going to isolate us. Then we need to change their minds, Ambassador Stone said.
How?
Cross asked. We've presented all the evidence. We've explained what we are and why. If that's not enough, he was interrupted by an urgent alert. Every screen in the chamber lit up with the same message. Long-range sensors had detected anomalies at the galaxy's edge. Multiple anomalies, large ones. The council reconvened immediately. A military officer presented the sensor data. We're detecting 73 distinct contacts entering the galaxy from intergalactic space. They match no known ship design. Size classification ranges from small planetoid to small moon. All are heading toward civilized space. The chamber fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. The harvesters, Dr. Knight said. They're here. Earlier than we predicted. High Chancellor Vex looked shaken. How long until they reach the outer colonies? At current speed, 3 weeks, the officer replied. Maybe less if they accelerate. Panic spread through the chamber. Delegates shouted questions and demands. Some called for immediate military mobilization. Others suggested evacuation of the outer systems. Jake stood up without asking permission. His voice cut through the chaos. This is why the old ones hid themselves in humanity. This is why they programmed us to awaken. They knew this enemy would return, and they knew the galaxy would need defenders. You expect us to trust you to fight them? A delegate demanded. How do we know you won't simply join forces with them? Because we have something to lose, Lisa said, standing beside Jake. Earth is our home. This galaxy is where we live. The harvesters consume biological life. They'll destroy us just as quickly as they'll destroy you. Ambassador Stone seized the moment. The council needs to make a choice. Isolate humanity and face the harvesters alone, or work with us and use the abilities we've been given. The old ones designed us to fight this enemy. We have knowledge locked in our genetics, battle strategies and weapons developed specifically against the harvesters. But we can't access it all without help. We need the galaxy's technology and resources to fully awaken our potential. You're asking us to weaponize you, High Chancellor Vex said. We're asking you to let us be what we were meant to be, Jake replied. Defenders, protectors, yes, we're predators. But we choose what we hunt. And right now we want to hunt the things trying to destroy our home. The debate that followed was intense but shorter than before. The harvester threat had changed everything. Several delegates who had called for isolation now reluctantly agreed that humanity's abilities might be necessary. Others still resisted, but their voices were fewer. Finally, a delegate from a species of avian humanoid stood. I was saved by a human, she said quietly. It was one of the students Jake had rescued from the toxic gas. When poison filled the corridor, when my friends and I were dying, a human ran into danger to pull us out. His body adapted to the toxins, just like the old legends say the old ones could do, but he didn't use that power to dominate us. He used it to save us. Maybe that's what we need to remember. Power itself isn't evil. What matters is how it's used. Her testimony sparked others. More students who had been helped by enhanced humans spoke up. Slowly, the tide began to turn. After 2 days of debate, High Chancellor Vex called for a vote. The question before us: do we integrate humanity into our defense forces and help them fully awaken their genetic potential, or do we maintain isolation protocols? The vote was close. Painfully close, but in the end, cooperation won by a narrow margin. The Council has decided, Vex announced. Humanity will be integrated into the Galactic Defense Force with strict oversight. Enhanced humans will be trained and monitored. In return, Earth will share all knowledge recovered from the Old One's preserved worlds. We will face the harvesters together. Ambassador Stone let out a breath she'd been holding. Captain Cross nodded with satisfaction. Lisa grabbed Jake's hand and squeezed. But Jake felt something else. As the decision was made, as humanity's path was chosen, another genetic lock opened inside him. Knowledge flooded his mind. Battle tactics, weapon designs, the harvester's weaknesses. He gasped and staggered. Other enhanced humans throughout the chamber reacted the same way, all of them receiving the same download of information that had been locked away for millions of years. It's happening, Dr. Knight said, her scanners detecting the changes. The final awakening has begun. Jake looked at his hands and saw them changing. Not dramatically, but subtly. His skin became slightly tougher, his muscles denser, his mind. Commander Talth paced across the medical clinic. His heavy footsteps echoed in the small room. Marcus watched the Vrexian warrior carefully. The commander seemed troubled. like he was carrying a weight that had grown too heavy over the years. Kelly remained sitting on the examination table. She had processed the shocking news about the progenitors, but now she had questions, many questions. "Tell me more about them," Kelly said. "About the progenitors. If we're supposed to be related to them, I want to know what they were really like." Talth stopped pacing. He looked at Kelly with what might have been respect. Most people would be too afraid to ask. They would deny the connection or try to run away from it. "I'm not most people," Kelly replied, "and running doesn't solve anything. If the galaxy thinks humans are dangerous because of our ancestors, then I need to understand why." Marcus pulled up a chair and sat down. He was just as curious as Kelly. The progenitors were clearly a crucial part of galactic history, yet he had never heard of them in all his years of medical training. Talth activated the holographic display again. This time images of strange structures appeared. They looked like buildings, but they were enormous, stretching up into clouded skies. The progenitors were ancient. Nobody knows exactly when they first appeared. Some historians believe they were created by an even older civilization. Others think they evolved naturally, but in a very unusual way. "Created?" Kelly asked. "You mean they were designed? Made to be what they were?" "That's one theory," Talth confirmed. The progenitors had biological features that seemed too perfect, too optimized. Their bodies were incredibly efficient. They could survive extreme temperatures, resist most poisons, heal from terrible injuries. They were strong, fast, and intelligent. Many scientists believe such perfection couldn't happen through natural evolution alone. Marcus studied the images more carefully. If they were so perfect, how were they defeated? "Through sacrifice and unity," Talth said quietly. The progenitors conquered system after system. They enslaved some species and destroyed others. For a long time, nobody could stop them. They seemed unstoppable. But eventually, the other species realized they had to work together. They formed the first version of what would become the Galactic Union. The display changed, showing massive space battles. Ships of different designs fought together against a common enemy. Explosions lit up the darkness of space. Planets burned. The war lasted 300 years, Talth continued. Billions died on both sides. Entire species went extinct. The progenitors were slowly pushed back system by system, but they never surrendered. They fought until almost none of them remained. "Almost?" Kelly caught the word immediately. "You said almost." "Some survived?" Talth nodded. According to the oldest records, a small group of progenitors fled the final battle. They had a ship, maybe a dozen individuals. They escaped into uncharted space. The Union searched for them for decades but found nothing. Eventually, most people assumed they had died somewhere in the void. "But they didn't die," Marcus said. "They found Earth." "That's what we believe," Talth agreed. "The DNA similarities are too strong to be coincidence. Somehow those last progenitors reached your planet. Maybe they crashed there. Maybe they chose it deliberately. We don't know. But what we do know is that they survived." Kelly stood up and walked to the holographic display. She reached out and touched one of the images. Her hand passed through the light. "If the progenitors were so advanced, why did they stay on Earth? Why not rebuild their technology and start conquering again?" "Another mystery," Talth said. "Perhaps they were too few. Perhaps they were tired of war. Perhaps they realized that their way of life only led to destruction. Whatever the reason, they abandoned their technology. They lived simple lives. Over generations, they mixed with the primitive humans who already existed on Earth." "Wait," Marcus interrupted. "There were already humans on Earth? Before the progenitors arrived?" Talth gestured at the display. A new image appeared showing genetic timelines. "Earth's humans are strange. Your DNA contains markers from the progenitors, but also from a native Earth species that evolved naturally. Somehow the two groups merged. The result was modern humanity." Kelly studied the genetic timeline carefully. "So we're hybrids? Part progenitor, part natural human?" "In a sense," Talth confirmed. "You inherited some of the progenitors' biological advantages. The rapid healing, the adaptable immune system, the efficient neural processing, but you also inherited something from Earth's original humans, something the progenitors never had." "What?" Kelly asked. Talth changed the display again. This time it showed humans working alongside aliens, building together, trading together, living together. Cooperation. True cooperation. The progenitors were conquerors. They dominated other species. They didn't form partnerships. They didn't build alliances. They only knew how to control and destroy. But humans are different, Marcus said slowly, beginning to understand. Very different, Talth agreed. Every human we've observed in Union space has shown an unusual ability to work with other species. You form friendships easily. You learn other cultures quickly. You adapt your behavior to fit different social situations. The progenitors were rigid and aggressive. Humans are flexible and social. Kelly walked back to the examination table. She looked thoughtful. So we're not exactly like them. We have their biological strengths but not their psychological weaknesses. That's what makes you so interesting, Talth said, and so frightening. The progenitors were dangerous because they were powerful and aggressive. But humans are potentially more dangerous because you're powerful and social. You could build alliances. You could form coalitions. You could unite different species under common causes. And that scares the Galactic Council? Kelly asked. It terrifies them, Talth admitted. A lone conqueror can be defeated, but a charismatic leader who unites others, who inspires loyalty and cooperation, that's much harder to stop. If humans decided to dominate the galaxy, you wouldn't do it through force alone. You'd do it through influence, through relationships, through making others want to follow you. Marcus felt uncomfortable with this line of thinking, but that's only dangerous if humans wanted to dominate. Everything you've said suggests that humans don't want to conquer. We want to coexist. Some members of the council agree with you, Talth said. They've watched humans for 50 years and seen no signs of aggression. They see traders, explorers, workers, and families. They see people just trying to live their lives. And the others? Kelly asked. They see a threat waiting to awaken, Talth said grimly. They argue that 50,000 humans scattered across the galaxy is one thing. But 8 billion humans on Earth is something entirely different. They fear that if Earth joins the Union, if all those humans spread across space with their adaptability and social skills, the balance of power will shift. Maybe not today, maybe not in 100 years, but eventually. Kelly's hands clenched into fists. So what are they going to do? Keep Earth locked away forever? Hunt down every human who left? That's being debated right now, Talth said. The council called an emergency session as soon as your test results triggered the alert. Representatives from 200 species are arguing about humanity's fate. Some want to reinforce the quarantine. Some want to remove all humans from Union space. And some want to lift the restrictions and welcome Earth into the galactic community. What do you think should happen? Kelly asked directly. You've been watching us. You've seen how humans behave. What's your opinion? Talth was quiet for a long moment. His scales shifted through several colors indicating deep thought. Finally, he spoke. I think fear is a poor basis for policy. I think judging people for crimes their ancestors committed millions of years ago is unjust. I think humanity deserves a chance to prove themselves. But, Kelly prompted, sensing there was more. But I also understand the Council's fear, Talth admitted. The progenitor war nearly destroyed civilization. The scars from that conflict still affect us today. Species that survived that war pass down stories of horror and loss. Those memories don't fade easily. Marcus stood up. So what happens next? When does the Council make their decision? Soon, Talth said. Maybe within days. And when they do, everything will change. For humans, for the Union, for everyone. Kelly looked at both of them. Then we need to make sure they make the right choice. Talth tilted his head. What do you mean? I mean I want to speak to the Council, Kelly said firmly. If they're going to decide humanity's future, they should hear from an actual human. They should hear our side of the story. Marcus and Talth exchanged glances. Neither had expected this. Kelly Morrison, a simple cargo ship worker, wanted to address the most powerful governing body in the galaxy. That's not how it works, Talth began. The Council doesn't usually hear from... I don't care how it usually works, Kelly interrupted. Nothing about this situation is usual. You said yourself that you've been watching humans. You know we're not monsters, but the Council is making decisions based on fear and old stories. They need to see that we're real people, not ancient nightmares come back to life. The Council chamber was enormous. Kelly stood in the center of a circular platform surrounded by hundreds of viewing screens. Each screen showed a different alien species. Some had multiple eyes, some had tentacles instead of arms, some looked almost human, while others defied any comparison to Earth life. Commander Talth stood beside Kelly. He wore formal ceremonial armor instead of his combat gear. Marcus was there too, representing the medical community. He held a data pad containing all of Kelly's test results and genetic information. The journey to the council station had taken 2 days. During that time, Kelly had prepared what she wanted to say. She had studied files about the progenitor war. She had read testimonies from species who suffered under their rule. She understood why the galaxy was afraid, but she also understood that fear alone couldn't guide good decisions. A deep gong sound echoed through the chamber. The screens flickered and a holographic figure appeared above Kelly. It was a Zenthar, an ancient species known for their wisdom. The Zenthar's name was Elder Voss. He served as the council's current moderator. "We recognize Kelly Morrison of Earth," Elder Voss announced. His voice was calm and measured. "You have requested to speak before this council regarding the status of humanity. This is highly irregular. Private citizens rarely address the full council. However, given the unique circumstances, your request has been granted. You may speak." Kelly took a deep breath. She had faced dangerous situations before. Space was full of hazards. Cargo ships encountered pirates, equipment failures, and navigation problems. But this was different. This was 8 billion lives depending on her words. "Thank you, Elder Voss," Kelly began. Her voice was steady. "I'm not a politician or a diplomat. I'm just a cargo hauler. I transport goods between stations. I fix broken equipment. I drink bad coffee and complain about long shifts. I'm an ordinary human living an ordinary life." Some of the council members shifted on their screens. They seemed puzzled by this introduction. "But apparently I'm also a genetic descendant of the most feared species in galactic history," Kelly continued. "The progenitors. I didn't know this until 3 days ago. I didn't know about the quarantine around Earth. I didn't know that my DNA would trigger alarms and military responses. I was just trying to renew my health certificate." Elder Voss nodded. "We understand your position, Ms. Morrison. However, ignorance of the situation doesn't change the facts. Your species carries progenitor genetic markers. This cannot be ignored." "You're absolutely right," Kelly agreed. "It can't be ignored. But it also can't be the only thing you consider. Yes, humans share DNA with the progenitors. But we're not them. We're different in fundamental ways." One of the council screens flickered. An insect-like alien spoke up. "Different how? You have their strength. You have their adaptability. You have their intelligence. What makes you think you won't also develop their aggression?" Kelly had expected this question. "Because we've had thousands of years to develop aggression and we haven't. Yes, humans fight sometimes. We have conflicts. We're not perfect. But we also cooperate. We build communities. We create art and music. We help each other survive." Another council member spoke, this one resembling a floating jellyfish. The progenitors also claimed to be civilized. They had art, they had culture. But when they gained power, their true nature emerged. They conquered and destroyed. "Then judge us by our actions, not our ancestors," Kelly argued. "There are about 50,000 humans currently living in Union space. Commander Tulth has been monitoring us for years. What have we done? Have we formed armies? Have we conquered stations? Have we enslaved other species?" Tulth stepped forward. "Permission to speak, Elder Voss?" "Granted, Commander." Tulth faced the council screens. "I have personally overseen human observation for the past 7 years. In that time, humans have integrated into dozens of different communities. They work alongside other species without conflict. They follow local laws. They contribute to the economy. We have documented over 2,000 instances of humans helping other species in emergency situations." A reptilian council member hissed skeptically. 2,000 instances is nothing. It proves only that humans are patient. They wait, they gain trust, then they strike. "Or," Marcus said, stepping forward, "it proves that humans are genuinely cooperative. I've worked with 3 different humans in my medical facility. They were excellent colleagues. They learned quickly, worked hard, and treated patients with care. Not once did any of them show signs of aggression or dominance behavior." Kelly appreciated the support, but she knew words alone wouldn't be enough. "Elder Voss, may I ask the council a question?" "You may. What would it take to prove that humans are not a threat? What evidence would satisfy you?" The chamber fell silent. The council members looked at each other on their screens. Finally, Elder Voss spoke. "That is the central question we face. Some argue that no amount of evidence is sufficient. They believe the risk is too great. Others believe humans have already proven themselves through decades of peaceful coexistence. So you're divided, Kelly observed. Significantly, Elder Voss admitted. The vote is very close. 70 species currently support integrating humanity into the Union. 68 species oppose it. 62 species remain undecided. Kelly did the math quickly. The undecided group held the power. If she could convince them, humanity would be accepted. If she failed, Earth would remain quarantined and all humans in Union space might be sent back. What do the undecided species need to see? Kelly asked. What information would help them make a decision? A bird-like alien spoke from one of the screens. We need assurance, some guarantee that humanity won't repeat the mistakes of the progenitors. How can anyone guarantee the future? Kelly asked. No species can promise they'll never make mistakes. Every civilization has done things they regret. The question isn't whether humans are perfect. The question is whether we deserve a chance to prove ourselves. Another council member spoke, this one resembling a glowing orb. The progenitor war cost trillions of lives. It set back galactic civilization by thousands of years. We cannot risk that happening again. I understand that fear, Kelly said softly. I really do. If I were in your position knowing that history, I might be afraid too. But fear shouldn't be the only thing guiding this decision. You also need to consider what you'll lose if you keep humanity locked away. What would we lose? Elder Voss asked, sounding genuinely curious. Kelly thought carefully before answering. You'd lose perspective. You'd lose the ideas and innovations that come from a species that developed in complete isolation. You'd lose the cultural contributions that humans could bring. You'd lose potential allies who desperately want to be part of something bigger than themselves. She paused, then continued with more emotion. And you'd lose your principles. The Galactic Union claims to value justice, fairness, and equality. But how can you claim those values while punishing an entire species for crimes they never committed? How can you lock away 8 billion people based solely on their genetic heritage? The chamber buzzed with discussion. Council members debated among themselves. Some seemed moved by Kelly's words. Others remained skeptical. Commander Telth spoke again. Elder Voss, if I may add something. I've studied human history extensively. Yes, they have conflicts. Yes, they have wars. But they also have something remarkable. They have the ability to change. Human societies that were once enemies become allies. Human cultures that once practiced terrible things reform themselves. They learn from their mistakes. The progenitors never learned, Marcus added. According to historical records, they never changed their ways. They conquered until they were destroyed. But humans have shown they can grow and adapt. Not just biologically, but socially and ethically. A massive whale-like creature appeared on one of the screens. Its voice was deep and resonant. I have remained undecided on this issue, but I find myself swayed by these arguments. Perhaps we should not judge humans by their worst possible future, but by their current behavior and their demonstrated capacity for growth. Several other undecided council members voiced agreement. Kelly felt a small spark of hope. Maybe they were making progress. But then a harsh voice cut through the discussion. It came from a council member whose species Kelly didn't recognize. Beautiful words mean nothing. The progenitors were also capable of beautiful words. They used language to deceive, to manipulate, to lure others into complacency. I propose we conduct a test. What kind of test? Elder Voss asked. Give humanity a challenge, a difficult situation that reveals their true nature. If they respond with cooperation and restraint, we consider integration. If they respond with aggression or dominance, we maintain the quarantine. Kelly felt nervous about this suggestion. Tests could be manipulated. They could be designed to fail. But she also recognized that some council members needed more than words. I'll accept any reasonable test, Kelly said. Humanity isn't afraid to prove themselves. Elder Voss considered this carefully. The council will discuss this proposal. Ms. Morrison, you and your companions will wait in a secure area while we deliberate. The platform beneath Kelly's feet began to descend. As she sank below, 5-6 hours passed in the waiting room. Kelly couldn't sit still. She paced back and forth, occasionally stopping to stare at the blank walls. Marcus tried to read files on his datapad, but he kept looking up every time Kelly made a sound. Commander Telth stood motionless near the door, his military training allowing him to wait with perfect patience. Finally, the door opened. A small robotic assistant entered and spoke in a neutral tone. "The council has reached a decision. Please follow me." They walked through long corridors filled with other aliens. News of the human situation had spread quickly. Everyone wanted to know what would happen. Kelly noticed some species watching her with curiosity. Others looked afraid. A few seemed angry. The robot led them to a different chamber, smaller than the main council room. Elder Voss was waiting there, along with representatives from 10 other species. These were the leaders of the undecided faction. "Ms. Morrison," Elder Voss began, "the council has been debating for hours. The situation is complex. Many valid concerns have been raised on both sides. We have decided to proceed with the proposed test, but with specific parameters that we believe are fair." Kelly's heart pounded. "What kind of test?" A council member who looked like a crystalline structure spoke next. "We will create a scenario on a neutral station. Humans will be placed in a situation where they must interact with other species under stress. We will observe how they respond to conflict, to resource scarcity, and to moral dilemmas." "How many humans?" Kelly asked. 10, Elder Voss replied, "including you if you agree to participate. The test will last 30 days. During that time, you will face various challenges designed to reveal your species' true nature." Marcus stepped forward. "What happens if they fail this test?" "If humans display the aggressive tendencies of the progenitors, the quarantine around Earth will be reinforced," Elder Voss said gravely. "All humans currently in Union space will be returned to your homeworld. Contact between humanity and the greater galaxy will be prohibited for at least another 1,000 years." "And if we pass?" Kelly asked. "Then Earth will be welcomed into the Galactic Union as a full member," Elder Voss replied. "Your people will have access to all trade routes, all knowledge bases, all opportunities that other member species enjoy. The quarantine will end." Kelly felt the weight of this decision. 10 humans would determine the fate of 8 billion. It seemed impossible. But she also understood why the council needed this. They needed to see humanity under pressure. They needed proof. "I'll do it," Kelly said firmly. "But I have one condition." Elder Voss tilted his head. "You are not in a position to make demands, Ms. Morrison." "It's not a demand," Kelly clarified. "It's a request for fairness. Let me choose the other 9 humans. If you choose them, you might pick people who fail just to justify your fears. Let me select people who represent humanity accurately." The council representatives discussed this quietly among themselves. Finally, Elder Voss nodded. "Acceptable. You have 72 hours to gather your team. They must all volunteer willingly. We will not force anyone to participate." Commander Touth escorted Kelly and Marcus back to their temporary quarters. As soon as they were alone, Kelly collapsed into a chair. "I need to find 9 humans who can handle impossible pressure without breaking." "How am I supposed to do that?" "Start with people you know," Marcus suggested. "People you trust." "I know maybe 20 humans in this entire sector," Kelly said. "Most of them are cargo haulers like me. We're not trained for diplomatic missions or psychological tests." "Maybe that's exactly what you need," Touth said. "The council wants to see real humans, not polished ambassadors. They want to see how ordinary people behave under stress." Kelly thought about this. He was right. If she brought professional diplomats or trained soldiers, the council would say they weren't representative of humanity. But ordinary people just trying to live their lives, that would be more convincing. She spent the next 2 days traveling to different stations, meeting with humans she had worked with over the years. She explained the situation carefully. Some people were terrified and refused. Others were angry that humanity was being tested at all. But some understood the importance and agreed to help. By the end of 72 hours, Kelly had assembled her team. There was Danny, a maintenance worker from Station Gamma 7. There was Lisa, a medical assistant who worked with alien patients. There was Carlos, a teacher who ran educational programs for mixed-species children. There was Amy, a chef who specialized in creating meals that different species could safely eat together. There were 5 others, all with different skills and backgrounds, but all sharing one quality. They genuinely cared about other people, regardless of species. The test began on a specially constructed station. It was designed to look like a normal trading outpost, but everything was monitored. Cameras recorded every interaction. Sensors measured stress levels and emotional responses. The council watched everything. The first challenge came on day 3. The station's water recycling system failed. There was only enough water for half the population for the next week. Resources had to be shared or rationed. The other species on the station, all actors hired by the council, began arguing about who deserved priority access. Kelly watched her team carefully. Danny immediately volunteered to fix the recycling system, even though it wasn't his responsibility. Lisa started organizing a fair rationing system. Carlos worked with the children to keep them calm. Amy modified meals to require less water in preparation. The humans didn't fight for extra resources. They didn't try to dominate the situation. They cooperated, they shared, and they worked to solve the underlying problem. Day 7 brought a different challenge. A medical emergency occurred. An alien child became sick with a disease that could spread quickly. Quarantine was necessary, but it meant separating families and restricting movement. The situation could easily turn into panic or conflict. Lisa took charge. She explained the medical situation clearly and calmly. She worked with the alien families to ensure they understood what was happening and why. The other humans supported her, helping to organize supplies and maintain order. There was no hysteria. No one tried to save only themselves. By day 15, the challenges became more subtle. Moral dilemmas were introduced. A human found a valuable item that belonged to someone else. The owner would never know if the human kept it. But the human returned it without hesitation, even though they desperately needed money. Another human was offered a bribe to help one species get better living quarters than others. They refused and reported the bribery attempt to station authorities. The council watched all of this. They saw humans under stress, under pressure, facing temptation and hardship. And consistently, the humans chose cooperation over domination, fairness over advantage, community over individual gain. On day 30, the test ended. Kelly and her team were brought before the council again. They looked exhausted. 30 days of constant observation and manufactured crisis had worn them down, but they had survived. Elder Voss studied them for a long moment. You have completed the test. We have reviewed all recordings and data. We have analyzed your responses to every scenario. Kelly held her breath. This was the moment everything had been building toward. The council has voted, Elder Voss continued. By a count of 137 to 63, we have decided to accept humanity into the Galactic Union. Kelly felt her legs go weak. She almost fell, but Danny caught her arm. Around her, the other humans were crying or hugging each other. They had done it. They had proven themselves. However, Elder Voss added, and the celebration stopped. Your integration will be gradual. Earth will be contacted officially within 6 months. First contact protocols will be followed carefully. Human expansion into Union space will be monitored for 2 generations. Military development will be restricted. These are the terms. We accept, Kelly said quickly. Thank you. Thank you all. Commander Talth stepped forward. Elder Voss, I request permission to lead the Earth contact mission. I have studied humanity longer than anyone. I should be there when we officially welcome them. Permission granted, Commander. 3 months later, Kelly stood on the observation deck of a massive council ship. Below her, Earth hung in the void of space. It looked so small, so fragile. But on that small planet lived 8 billion people whose lives were about to change forever. Contact teams were preparing to land in several locations simultaneously. They would meet with human governments and explain everything. The quarantine, the progenitors, the test, and the decision. It would be shocking news. Many humans would struggle to accept it. But Kelly believed they would adapt. That's what humans did best. Marcus stood beside her. He had requested to be part of the contact mission too. How do you think they'll react? He asked. Some will be angry that we were kept isolated, Kelly said. Some will be afraid of the progenitor connection. But most will be excited. They'll want to explore. They'll want to meet new species and see new worlds. That's who we are. Do you think the council made the right choice? Marcus asked. Kelly thought about this carefully. I think they made a brave choice. They chose hope over fear. They chose to believe that people can change, can grow, can be better than their ancestors. That's not easy, but it's right.